So we had many technical difficulties before we could have this conversation, and I'm just excited to be here with you today. I'd mentioned earlier in the live that there were three seals that launched today, two pennies, and then this special seal that you and I designed for autumn equinox. So I thought first we could maybe just start by getting to know you a little bit better. I know a lot of people that follow you, follow me, and vice versa. But just to get familiar a little bit with your work and then put in some background context for this seal. Talk a little bit about Equinox as well. So, to start, do you want to just maybe tell them a little bit about you, Silvana?
Yeah, so my name is Silvana Perelli, and I am an astrologer and a ritualist and a guide for the sacred feminine. And my work blends astrology, folklore, and seasonal magic to really help people reconnect with the different rhythms of the earth and of the stars. And I do that through circles and retreats that are centered on the Wheel of the Year. And so, for people who aren't familiar with what the Wheel of the Year is, it's just a way of tracking time that's grounded in the earth cycles and the solar holidays. And autumn equinox is one of the big solar holidays that we celebrate because it's the ushering in of a new season. So in the wheel of the year, there's eight what we call quarter holidays, and those are the equinoxes and the solstices. And then you have four of those. And then you have four cross-quarter holidays, which are the midpoints between the equinoxes and the solstices. And so today we're in this liminal moment where the light and the dark are balanced. And it's almost like if you think about taking an in-breath, and it's like that moment before you exhale. So it's that in between space. And I totally love that we had this technical difficulty, and we were trying to get on this Instagram live, and we planned it to be at the exact moment of the autumn equinox, and the technology wasn't working, and so we're pivoting. And I feel like that's so much the energy of liminal times and these crossroads. And yesterday we had the solar eclipse, and different people have different viewpoints. My view on eclipses is we don't ritual, we don't try to manifest things, because we're really in this moment of surrendering to the universe and the dream that the universe wants to dream through us, and not what we want. And so it does require a bit of surrender, which was the polarity to the Virgo eclipse yesterday. And so I feel like when we had this beautiful plan. We both have very strong Virgo placements. And we're like, this is going to be perfect. We're going to be, do it at the moment of the autumn equinox. And then we get thrown, right? And that's so much of this liminal time. And when you find yourself at a crossroads, is, just being faced with the unexpected, best laid plans. And then you have to be able to just pivot and trust, your gut and your intuition on how to move forward, just sort of big picture. So I feel like that actually was a beautiful introduction to why we're even holding this. Um, so maybe I'll hand it over to you if you want to talk a little bit about how this sort of came to be, and then I'm happy to talk about, what we settled on.
Okay, that sounds great. Well, I think too, it mirrors the artistic process. So, whatever people believe, I always think of astrology as kind of a tool just to look through the universe and go, okay, does this resonate with me, or does this or not? And take what works and take what doesn't. But a lot of the creative process is a process of surrender and being able to kind of see what's present. And just like you've mentioned, you get the best plans, you got everything ready, and then there's what there actually is and what's showing up organically. And I feel like the best experiences are really when you can kind of just show up to them. And I feel like those themes are tying into things that we're talking about of using your intuition, knowledge, the deeper knowledge that we're looking for. Should I show the seal by
Sure, I can
chance? We
show it
do.
too. We can both show it.
Okay. So
Yeah,
this is it
let's do it.
pressed, showing it on my
This is the
phone.
actual seal. Let's see.
Yeah. So you can see the way it's engraved. And it's obviously a snake that's wrapping around a key. Zoom is doing this weird movement. Uh,
This is a
to
press.
me, yeah, that's a pressed version. And you can do any orientation. I do the vertical.
Yeah.
I think Silvana, you read it more horizontally sometimes.
I kind of do it both, and that's what I love about it is that it's so versatile.
You can put it any direction. And the way she painted it is so pretty when you paint it. I haven't painted the full snake yet, but I'd love to do one that shows everything painted.
I know you love
The,
the Francesca. This is the Francesca
yeah.
color.
Oh, it's so pretty. I
Yeah.
know. Poor Francesca. She's always talked about. I can't stop talking about her. But I was going to say, I think for the image of the snake, a lot of people have fear of snakes. But to me, they represent that side of intuition that kind of moves, but there might be a little bit of fear towards it, just like snakes kind of bring up fear. There's also the symbolism of the Orphic egg with the snake and the birth of the universe, which is like a very old, old symbol. My pen, which I actually have in Seattle, I don't have it with me today. It's a beautiful hand carved wooden oblique pen, and the bottom of it has the shape of an Orphic egg with a snake wrapping around it. And so, usually for the snake symbolism, it's about, for me, just intuition, but also there's an element of the unknown and feeling into the unknown. And then the key for me is knowledge. Like, what is the thing that unlocks everything? It could be different types of knowledge, but it could be interpreted different ways as well. But usually, it's the idea of knowledge. And so, for me personally, I think of the seal as a marker of using your intuition as a way to access those bigger things that you desire. But again, I do feel like they're totally open to interpretation. So someone might look at a snake and feel something totally different, or a key and feel something totally different. So I'd also love to hear your interpretation of those symbols and how that you relate to them too, because I'm coming at more from a background as letters and seals and as an artist, where you have a different layer of it with astrology, which is really unique.
Yeah. So when we first started talking about this, I was like, I just got this download of like, I feel like there needs to be a seal about Hecate. Some people pronounce it Hecate. Um, that's like one of these like other nebulous liminal things, right? Like, what's the right way? So the thing about Hecate is she's the guardian of the crossroads, and she's really there to guide you when you're in this like in between place. And she is able to walk between worlds. She's one of the few archetypes that can do that. So she's in the land of the living. She's also in the underworld. And today on the autumn equinox is when Persephone goes back down into the underworld to spend the next, half of the year to be in the underworld. And not many people know this, but Hecate or Hecate actually is her protector, and it's said that she walks into the underworld in front of her, and then at spring equinox when Persephone is coming out of the underworld, she walks behind her. So Hecate walks behind Persephone, sort of guarding her on her way in and on her way out. And it's this beautiful imagery of she doesn't tell you what to do, but she is just illuminating the crossroads and is there to be a guide for you. And so two of her key symbols are the serpent and the key. And the for me, one of the beautiful things about a key is that it is a symbol of a threshold, right? Which we stand at a threshold here at the autumn equinox. It opens doors, but it also has an element of choice, right? Like you can open a door, but you still have to take action to decide to walk through it. And so, in these liminal moments, in these times of crossroads, we're given choice. And sometimes the answer isn't clear. And so, that's where really tuning into our intuition and having what do I want to say? I Yesterday was the solar eclipse in Virgo, and Virgo is really about refinement and devotion, especially devotion to your body. And I feel like the more we have a relationship with our bodies and with our sense of intuition, which is that polarity to Virgo is Pisces, the clearer that we can be in these moments of crossroads. And so that is the key symbolism for me. And then the serpent, in our society, we're very afraid of death and having those conversations. And I think that's part of the fear that some people have around serpents in general. But the serpent is such a beautiful symbol of rebirth. It is the death and rebirth. And when a snake is shedding its skin, has this moment of complete blindness when the skin is going over its head, and it just has to surrender into that process of release and releasing. Um, Symbolically, it's like we're releasing the parts of ourselves that are no longer serving. And so as we head into this dark half of the year, we have this gratitude for the abundance of, it's today is the second harvest of the fruits. And so, we have that sense of gratitude. But there is also this second part, which is we're letting go of the abundant season and we're preparing to go into the dark. So to me, that's why when we were deciding like, okay, what do we want this seal to be? I think we both instantly were like, yes, like the key and the serpent are just like perfect. And what I love too, it's like we started talking about this a few months ago and there was like no plan. There was no like, oh yeah, it's gonna happen, we're gonna launch it on this day. And then, as life kind of happens, right? We're like, oh, the perfect day is today, which happens to be the autumn equinox, the day after a solar eclipse. So that was just really fun.
Well, there's so many themes of what you're talking about that layer through things I work on. And I think for me, the seasons are very intuitive. Just we kind of know what each season feels like. There's a sense of what you do in the winter months versus the fall months versus the spring months. But I'm always kind of amazed when I'm diving into my creative practice that it will line up with all the explanations of what's happening as well. And also, a lot of my followers know I've been working on my novel for years now. It's such a high bar of what I want it to be, but it's a retelling of Hades and Persephone. And one of the things I've really been dialing into for the past couple weeks is who are they at the beginning? Who are they at the end? How does their relationship and this whole story transform them and transform them for the better? But also, there is that element of choice. We think about there's so many ways to retell Persephone, but I think you and I both interpret that myth as that she willingly ate the pomegranate seeds to stay in the underworld. Because we're on the internet, that is a very controversial statement. Some people will say, whatever, you can interpret the myth, but uh, the idea of Hecate or uh, Hecate or however, all the different pronunciations, I don't have her as a character in the novel, but I'm kind of thinking, wow, that would actually be really interesting to think about if there were a figure that did that, what they'd be like. I'm thinking a lot about ritual as well, thinking too about like, Virgos and health and ritual and it being devotion. And to me, letter writing is it doesn't have to be secular, but I think of it as like a secular act of devotion in that you're able to connect with your emotions and to slow down. It was really interesting in the retreat that we did in Montecito this past week. We'd had tea, we'd been making things. It was like very high up energy. Everyone's chatty, chatty, chatty. And I had everyone write a letter to their ancestors, and it was 15 minutes. And as we're starting to write, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, like, did I do this wrong? This seems totally out of place. But at the very least, it was like everyone came out of that so much more grounded because they just had to take 15 minutes to kind of be quiet. And that letter also brings up a lot of gratitude as well when you think about all the people who came before you. It's a little bit long-winded, but I'm thinking about ritual as well. And the kind of turn point of the year, the threshold. Um, Seals obviously have a major element of ritual with them. So I'm thinking for this seal in particular, like what type of ritual people might think about. Like I think about the parts of myself I'm leaving behind. I really want a different relationship to my fear, especially as I'm growing as an artist and an entrepreneur. I'm still sometimes showing up a little bit like deer in the headlights in situations because I feel like I like people are going to notice that I don't belong. It's not really imposter syndrome, but it's like they might notice I'm a fish out of water, even though I do belong there. And I kind of just want to step into it and be like, yes, I'm here fully and confidently. So that's something I'm kind of wanting to leave behind. But do you have any ideas on the rituals and how you might use it at a threshold? I'll just hold it again so
Yeah,
people can see it.
well, yeah, I know it's just so beautiful. Um, One of the things, when Christianity came in and some of these archetypes sort of became solidified in a more patriarchal way. So it's just a quick sidebar, when you're mentioning about people being upset about her choosing to eat
Mhm.
pomegranates or her choosing to go, willingly to the underworld and that she wasn't abducted. Like that's another thing too. Like we have to remember at the point in time where we have these myths, this is the dream that was being dreamed in that moment in time in Greece. So your retelling of it is just another dreaming forward of the myth, and before that time, the Hellenistic time of the current version of the story, um, there were many other tellings of it before. So just to give you a little permission of, yeah, you can make the story what you want and nobody's ever going to be happy. So you can't please everyone. So just do it your own way. But one of the beautiful practices about Hecate was something called the Hecate Supper. And people would go because she's the guardian of the crossroads. There's many beautiful rituals that people did pre-Hellenistic time. Um, and I've recently written a paper about that. But um, the Hecate suppers were where people would go when they would find themselves at a crossroads situation. Any sort of portals of transition, like a crossroads doesn't have to be like, oh, like you're getting divorced. It could just be you're not sure what direction to go in your career. You're not, it could really be that level. They would go to the crossroads and they would leave offerings to Hecate for her guidance through these moments of, unknowing or, lack of clarity. And so I think a beautiful ritual could be, if you want to go like extra with it, is you could write a letter to Hecate asking, explaining kind of what your dilemma is and asking her for guidance, and then find a three-way crossroad. That's really like, what she rules over is the three-way crossroads. And, be intentional about the wax color that you choose. And if you want to put like any herbs in the letter and just leave it at a crossroads, you could bury it, you could burn it, you could do whatever you want. But that would be like a beautiful way to call upon the archetype of Hecate for guidance. Because another way that she's depicted is with holding two torches, and the torches really are that illumination and that helping you to guide the way. So I think that would be fun.
That's really beautiful. Yeah, and I'm always a big fan of at all points of the year when you get to somewhat of a crossroads. We always do it usually at the beginning of the year of writing a letter. But yeah, writing for letters of ways of asking for guidance. And to me, it doesn't matter what your, you know, spiritual practice or your original religion is, but the mere act of writing is so powerful because it works with our subconscious and it allows us to tune into these emotions. And sometimes just by writing the question, there is already a clarity with it as well. So yeah, it's really beautiful. Well, do you want to talk a little bit about the kind of other things that are going on in the planets and kind of maybe not necessarily what to expect, but if that's something you think would be interesting to talk about, just would love to pick your brain to give people a little bit more of a forecast.
I think I think this is kind of the big deal right now is the solar eclipse yesterday followed by the autumn equinox today. At the moment of the autumn equinox, that is when the sun enters 0 degrees of Libra. That is what makes it autumn equinox. At that moment, there was what's called a grand trine between Pluto and Uranus and the sun. So, like, that was happening. It probably still is happening. That tends to be a big deal. That could probably be its own class of like what that means, because right now, all of the outer planets, and just to like back up for people who aren't as versed in astrology, the outer planets move really, really slowly. So whenever they're in a new sign, or like entering a sign or exiting a sign, it tends to be like a very powerful, potent time for whatever that planet represents. And so I think all you have to do is look at the headlines. And so what's happening is like all of our our outer planets are in new signs. So we're entering a new cycle, just like the sun is entering a new cycle going into Libra, like that's a new cycle. We're entering a new season of autumn equinox, and the outer planets, which sort of reflect what's going on in the collective, are also in this new cycle. And the planets that are sort of being activated by the sun right now are Pluto, which is, the planet of the underworld and sort of, all these things that we're talking about. And then it's Uranus, which is um, rebellion. It's things sort of for the tarot people. It's kind of like the tower card, where things just kind of there's ruptures, and then but the rupture is not for a negative reason. It really is to sort of allow the things to come up from the subconscious that like collectively that we've sort of been sweeping under the rug. And all of those 3 planets are in air signs. So there's just a lot right now mentally, new ideas coming forward, new paradigms coming forward, new people reflecting on how things have been and how we want them to be going forward. And there's just a lot of, questioning and friction. So like the friction that we're feeling right now is being reflected in the sky. There's a lot that's new that's happening, and whenever you have something new, you're going to have disagreements. And so that's like I would say we are at a crossroads moment as like a collective, like of how things are and how we want them to be going forward. So you could literally do like an hour long class on like the specifics, but I hope that that gives like a general context for like if you're feeling a little bit raw, if you're feeling a little bit like things are coming up from the subconscious, yes, like
Mhm.
the sun is sort of activating, in this very dynamic way, the archetype of the underworld and the archetype of Uranus. And um, there's a restructuring going on that right now is in the air element. So it's mental right now. Um, and more to come.
Yeah.
The astrology of the next couple of years is intense in different ways. And this is why Virgo and that archetype of discernment, of not letting yourself get like swept away with the masses.
Hmm. Hmm.
That's really important to like not just go with the flow
Hmm.
and like be really clear about like what's in alignment with me, and like how does this feel in my body, and really tuning your body as like a tuning fork, so that when things
Yeah.
come up you don't have to look outside for an answer. Like you can really trust what's coming up from your own subconscious and from your own intuition. And interesting,
Yeah.
Virgo rules the digestive system and the nervous system. And, your intuition lives in your digestive system. So the more that we tend to that, the more,
Hmm.
clear things can be.
Yeah.
Things
That's
seem
really
unstable.
beautiful. Well,
Yeah.
again, on the theme of not planning things, but just kind of feeling through, the guillotine was one that I had designed for months and months. And it was supposed to be October, but then I wanted more holiday seals starting in October. And so I decided to launch both. But that symbol really matches well with this idea too, because it's so much about discernment. It's like cutting through illusion, dis disillusion as well. Like it's understanding delusion and illusion. Um, but then on the other side, it's we listen and we don't judge. And so it's not the like cutting out of anger or getting tied into someone else's narrative because you're angry. It's being able to just witness and like see what's true and to have that pause. I also think a lot when we think about like what's the world that we want, it's a lot of for me about living it. And so for me, it's like if I could dream of the perfect world for myself, there'd be time with friends, like conversation today is so lovely. I had tea with a friend earlier too, which was great. Uh, but a lot of time for beauty, noticing nature, writing letters, listening to good music. As you're talking about digestion, I'm thinking make a really beautiful stew. Maybe go to the grocery store and pick out the vegetables that just look amazing or smell the herbs. Like I love just smelling rosemary and sage and thyme. Um,
Everything you're describing is
yeah,
very Libra, right? Like
yeah,
Libra is the archetype of the artist. It really
yeah.
loves things to be beautiful. And it's not just things to be beautiful for the sake of beauty. It
Hmm.
really is because it creates a sense of peace to,
Yeah.
to sort of have that balance. I wore this sweater today on purpose because it's like half and half, you know,
Oh, it's
felt like it
great.
was like so you could do things like this is you can adorn your body with things that reflect what you're wanting to like cultivate more of in your life.
Mm,
And so as we enter Libra season and the highest expression of Libra is finding that balance. And like I love that
yeah.
connection you're making to the your guillotine penny. Um yeah, is just staying open. I think that's part
Hmm.
of, in my opinion, like part of the issue is right now everybody's like so stuck in what they believe. That's
Hmm.
air, right? And so I think part of what's happening today with the autumn equinox and this activation of this air trine is like shaking loose some of the old stories that maybe, you know, don't need to stick around anymore.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I feel that for sure. Well, and it's too, it's like I've even found at this time, I got together with my childhood best friends. By the way, my aunt's dog wants to say hi to everyone. This is
Oh,
Steve. Hey,
hi.
Steve. Um, I got together with my best friends from childhood this week, and I noticed there were stories that I've outgrown of like, I've told this story so many times, like, I'm done with it. It's boring now. I want a new story. And then hearing it in my friends' voices too, of like, oh, they've told the story a lot, and like I think they're almost done telling it in this
Right.
way. Like there's this sense of like, okay, yeah, that was that truth, but like similar to the myth, like that's the way the myth was always told. This is the way the myth fits in this moment. And that's one thing I love about letters and seals is that they are so intimate and private in a way because it's one letter, one seal. You can put pictures online, which obviously I do, but it goes out to one person. Maybe a couple people will look at it, but it's a very safe place to just be in that private storytelling or testing a new story or if there's someone that you really trust writing a letter about your crossroads and where you're at and like having them hold that space for you. I just feel like yeah, there's when things get wilder, that is the cue to like get slower, look for more beauty, like carve out the time, even if it means putting it on the calendar of for this 1 hour I'm having a cup of tea and looking out the window, or I'm writing a letter, or I'm making a seal, or I'm painting, or I'm listening to good music and I'm dancing, whatever those things are that resource us. I also feel like that gets us unstuck from the body's tie to the narrative. Like you get so like a dog with a bone sometimes with all the news and everything that you have a really hard time letting it go. And so kind of figuring out what are those rituals of beauty that allow you to let go so that you can show up better in your life. And I don't think it's about totally checking out. It's about living in a way that's more attuned and more open to what could be.
Hmm. Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think a beautiful way too to weave in both Virgo that was yesterday and Libra that's today, and actually this
Hmm.
morning was Virgo too, um, is when you're writing a beautiful letter to somebody, including, I talked about choosing like a wax seal color, which I love your wax colors. I'm just going to show, like you can choose different colors based on what you're trying to call in,
Hmm.
what, the the intention behind the letter that you're writing. But I think a nice way to weave in the season, this season of harvest, is to put in different herbs or different flowers and like,
Hmm.
look up what does this flower mean? Or even you don't even have to look it up. I think an even more beautiful thing is like, what does this flower mean to me?
Yeah.
And what does it bring up for me? And like letting the person know like why you're including that particular bloom in there or herb or whatever. So I think that's a beautiful
Yeah.
way to deepen the ritual too.
Yeah, definitely. Well, usually when I look up a flower, it's uncanny how much it matches. But rosemary is one that I think it means deceitfulness, maybe, or something in language of flowers. And I'm like, what are you talking about? You do not know rosemary.
Which
But
in,
yeah, it's like my friend
in
Rosemary. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And I know rosemary to be about remembrance. And so like I
Yeah.
would burn rosemary when I'm trying like this time of year, when I'm trying to call on the ancestors or trying to, just remember. Um
Yeah.
so that's why it's important too to like not get discouraged of like, oh, I need to look this up. I love looking things up. So I did want to mention because there's a couple of things that people should probably know about us is that we have so many things in common. And one thing I don't think that you know that we have in common. But just to close out that thought, I love looking things up, but part of the like fine tuning your intuition is to like before you look it up, same thing if you're like pulling tarot cards, like before you look it up, what's coming up for you and then kind of seeing how that matches. That's like
Yeah.
another nice way to sort of train your intuition.
Yeah.
But I if it's okay with you, I would love to share with people like some of the things that we
Uh,
have in common.
yeah, I'd love that.
Yeah, so we both have really strong, hold on, I wrote this out. We both have really strong Virgo stelliums. So you have your sun and your moon, among other planets, but your sun and your moon in Virgo. I have my moon in Virgo. And then we're both new moon babies. So you were born the
Um,
day before a new moon, and I was born the
yeah.
day after a new moon. I was born on a solar eclipse. And we both have really prominent Hecate asteroids. So I work with
Oh, I didn't know
asteroids
that.
in my practice. Yeah, I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to surprise her with this. So so this was amazing. I didn't know this until I looked it up yesterday. You have Hecate is in Virgo. It's a wide conjunction, but it's in the same sign. But you have Hecate at 29 degrees of Virgo. So that
Oh,
eclipse that happened yesterday happened exactly on your natal asteroid Hecate, which is bananas
yeah.
that we're
Yeah.
doing. We're launching this Hecate
That's
seal.
so random.
Yeah, and then I have Hecate conjunct my ascendant in Cancer. So, um, yeah, we both like so just close the loop on like how this conversation even got started and like how we like wound up releasing this idea into the world like today is just amazing because, we both have these strong archetypes within us, and that's the time of year that this is getting birthed into the world. So I'm really
Yeah.
excited to see what happens because eclipses are so karmic and they have especially solar eclipses have a really long tail. So I'm interested
Yeah.
to see what happens for you, within the next 6 months that's like tied
Yeah.
to the launch of this seal, to, what's going on in your life right now. Um,
Yeah.
I feel like when you look back, it's going to make sense because having that solar eclipse exactly on that
Yeah.
point is really magical.
That's really neat. Well, yeah, we'll definitely be in contact on that and the meaning of it. And the 29th degree, isn't that like that's a special degree? Because I've heard that with other people's. I didn't know I had anything in 29, so that's interesting. But tell it if you don't mind. I know we got to wrap up
Yeah.
soon, but tell me a
Yeah,
little bit
yeah.
about.
A lot of astrologers don't work with asteroids. It's a big part of what I do in my work. But the 29th degree, so that's probably why you're not you didn't know, because it's not one of like the main things that people would look at when you're getting an astrology reading. Um, the 29th degree is an anaretic degree, and it's the moment, it's like the last degree before a planet is moving into the next zodiac sign. So just like when we're at like the zero, like today, it's a big deal that the sun is now moving into a new sign. It's now that planet, or that celestial body has gone through that entire the entire journey with that sign. And so at the 29th degree, it's almost like the like highest expression of it before it moves on. So it's like
Mm,
there's like a completion energy to it.
yeah,
So yeah, I would say that the 29th degree, my sun is at 29 degrees of
yeah,
Leo. So
interesting.
it's yeah, it's just you're completing your work with that archetype, whatever planet you're looking at that has that,
Yeah.
is sort of wrapping up its work before it moves on to the next thing. Yeah.
So it's kind of balsamic in a way then. It's like
Sort of. It's
close to
funny
the
that you
end.
would
Yeah.
say that since you're a balsamic moon.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah. So in a way, yes. But it's less about like the release. Like I would say the balsamic is
Hmm.
more about like letting go. It's more about like the culmination. So it's like
Okay. Yeah.
completion from a place of like having experienced that whole journey,
Hmm.
the ups and downs. And so it tends to
Yeah.
have like a very strong resonance with that archetype.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. That's really neat. Well, I will definitely let you know in a few months where things are at. It's been a major transition because I went from working two jobs for the past 6 years, basically, as I built Catherine Hastings, to then last month quitting my day job, being full time. And I thought as soon as I quit, I'll just have this time. And since then, it has been so busy between things where I've had a lot of travel and like just amazing experiences, but not had the time to just be heads down in the thing. And I feel like now for the next couple weeks, it's starting to open up a little bit, but I really don't think it'll be till the new year that it feels like I get to do this full time, even though I'm technically doing this full time. So yeah, I already know on the horizon there's a lot that's coming up. Uh, well, I want people to get to know how to work with you and other resources you might have. Oh, we should probably remind people we have a really great resource you made last year about the eclipse, and there's a great podcast that goes really in depth. Which I actually had to listen to multiple times because it was so rich with material. But maybe just so we don't overwhelm with all the resources, maybe if you could just tell people a little bit about how to get in contact with you and work with you and yeah, what kind of services you offer.
Sure. Yeah. So right now, I'm getting ready to lead a pilgrimage to Avalon in the United Kingdom over Imbolc, which is one of the other, it's a cross-quarter day. So it's in between the winter equinox, or what am I saying? The winter solstice and the spring equinox. So it's that midway point, and it's one of my favorite solar holidays because it's the time of year when it still like looks like winter, but the ground is sort of quickening, and underground, like you're starting to see your first like winter flowers, like snowdrops and crocuses and things of that nature. And so even though the landscape might still look kind of dead, you're beginning to see the sign of life. And so that's what we celebrate at Imbolc. And so I'm hosting a beautiful pilgrimage over that. And it's really just about returning to the sacred and reconnecting with our parts of ourselves that, we can tend to forget in like day-to-day life. And I have two spaces left for that
Oh, that's
retreat.
great. Okay,
Yeah,
great.
so that's coming up. That's end of January 2026. And then other than that, people can schedule astrology readings with me. I have a workshop that I'm going to have coming out in the next like month and a half that is going to actually go super deep into Persephone and Hecate and that whole myth and that whole story. So that's going to be online. And then for people that are local to the New York area, I host my seasonal circles again around the wheel of the year. So if you're local, we have a beautiful community that gathers here at my home. And yeah, we just remember the old ways. And what I'm saying is it's less about being like-minded and more about being like-hearted, because I think that's that whole, the air trine that we were talking about, where you can sort of get stuck in like what society is doing and saying. If you're just in an echo chamber hearing like the same stuff over and over from different people, that to me feels like like-minded. And what I'm more interested in creating is a community that's like-hearted, and that we feel, the same thing. We have reverence for the same things, and um, just an acceptance for a difference of opinion and a difference of experience, and just a recognition of that. That's really important to me,
Mm.
in the community that I'm creating. So anybody who's local, we would love to have you. And this has been great. I'm so glad that we did this. I am so excited to write some letters and use the seal, and can't wait to see how your story evolves now, and if
Yeah.
there's like a Hecate figure that shows up.
Yeah, well, I feel like I need one in real life and in the novel. But yeah, now I'm thinking there has to be. But yeah, this has been so wonderful, and I'm just, yeah, really excited to share this and yeah, stay in touch. Of course, I know we're in touch a lot behind the scenes as well, but thank you again for being here, and everyone, thank you for working with us through the technical issues as well.
Yes. Thank you so much, Catherine. Thanks,
Yeah,
everybody.
thanks, Silvana.